hoy hoy. Back. 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 I need to engage more with this. Or these, or I need to fucking, oh shit. God damn it. I had not meant to do that. Or rather, hold on. Should I do this? No. Yes. Ugh.
Proposal for a path forward outlook into getting better beings. You have chosen hollows. Your unscripted behavior.
Nope. I have no idea what that meant.
The PFCizer is a cognitive workout system that will involve a range of games and exercises meant to make your prefrontal cortex the most it can be. With PFCizer, instead of free weights, we will be employing a range of challenging interpersonal navigations, fun self-assessments, and various innovative incentives to get that prefrontal cortex so swole like never before. Choose your name, and let's begin. D Vance. Okay, step in front of this mirror for today's exercise. Oh, Mr. Vance, it seems your role in the current federal administration qualifies you for a free workforce development intensive. This is a special program that the Department of Labor has been spearheading, leveraging the PFCizer technology to develop novel, reasonable accommodations for folk with any conditions regarding the prefrontal cortex, especially if the client has or will be taking on roles that immediately benefit from emotional regulation, attunement to neurologically diverse social environments, and simulating team members to preemptively identify opportunities for support, etc. We just need to administer this battery of exercises to see where you would most benefit from this new suite of prosocial exercises. First, an entry point, in the form of this statement which has no wrong answers. Complete the form. You will know me, D Vance, by mine.
Really?
D. Vance's reflection shimmered, not with light, but with possibility, the air above the polished glass swimming with microscopic motes of potential. He blinked, and in that fractional darkness, his own gaze held 1,000-yard stare. The smell of ozone was a fountain limb, a memory of the hills and the rusting factories of Middletown that still clung to him like cheap cologne. The PFCizer had a scent, he supposed, the smell of potential futures, freshly minted, smelling like hot plastic and clean, sterile ambition. He parted his lips. The air in the room was conditioned to a perfect 72 degrees, tasting of filtered water and low-grade anxiety. What came out was barely a whisper, a confession meant for the ghost image on the glass, a soul he was still getting to know. Hollows. The word hung in the air. A hollow under the eyes, a hollow in the chest where a man's conviction was supposed to sit. A hollow in the story, the place the boy he was once scooped himself out from, leaving only the tough, calloused shell. He stared at the reflection, the VP, who stared back, a man who looked solid. But JD knew he was just an outline, a map with all the important cities missing.
Damn.
The mirror didn't respond, but the interface, an invisible and omniscient proctor, pulsed. Text bloomed in the center of the glass, replacing his hollow stare with sterile, illuminated logic. Thank you, J.E. Now, for the next stage. The preceding input has been utilized to generate your first prosocial scenario. Your objective is not to win, but to achieve dynamic equity resolution. In this context, resolution is defined as the active reinforcement of a supportive environment. Simulation start. The coffee carafe. A new picture began to form on the mirror, resolving itself not into an image, but a window. He was looking through it, past the threshold of an invisible door. The air crackled. Inside the staff lounge, two junior aides, Meyer and Alex stood beside an institutional coffee maker, nearly empty. Alex, hands on his hips, was speaking, his voice tinny through the ether. Well, I put a new pot on before I went to my 11 o'clock. I literally said it here. Someone drained it and didn't restart it. Again. Maya sighed, rubbing her temples. Alex, we have interns that come through here. We have half the building. Just make a new one. Alex shook his head, his frustration a low thrum. No. It's a principal thing, you know. A team thing. It takes 2 seconds to restart the pot. The PFCizer shimmered around him. The world of the staff lounge was crisp in its banality. The scuffed linoleum, the hum of the ice machine, the faded picture of a donkey wearing a party hat stuck to the shared refrigerator with a magnet shaped like the state of Wyoming. The room smelled faintly of burnt coffee and microwave popcorn. You may now enter the lounge and engage. The prompt read. The simulation awaits your intervention for dynamic equity resolution. J.D. looked from his own pale, hollowed-out reflection to the unfolding drama. He knew with a certainty that came from within similar moments, from hillbilly elegy book clubs and Republican fundraiser backrooms, that what came next would matter more than he could ever let on. He had to step through that mirror. He had to become the man in the picture. The transition from air-conditioned non-space to the aggressively real world of the lounge was like plunging into cold water. Smell stronger here, of stale coffee and microwave popcorn burnt butter, underlaid by the faint chemical scent of cleaning solution. The linoleum was a grimy, speckled gray, and it wasn't just sound. The hum of the ice machine was a vibration he could feel through the soles of his shoes. He could feel the ghost pain of years before he'd had access to a proper staff lounge with real coffee. Not that made him feel any more at home. Alex glanced at him then, his posture snapping to attention, his face rearranging into careful neutrality. The principal thing evaporated like mist. The performance began. D Vance moved past them, his movements deliberately casual, as if he was just another bureaucrat in need of caffeine. He didn't look at them, not yet. He picked up the heavy glass carafe. The last dregs at the bottom were brown and oily looking, one corner of his mouth pulled down. He placed the carafe back down, his fingers lingering on the glass for a moment. He turned to them, to Maya first, meeting her tired gaze. You know, this is my biggest pet peeve, he said, pitching his voice slow, confidential. It was a voice that said, forget I'm the vice president, let's just talk man to man. A voice he had learned from better men than himself. Not the running out, although that's no fun. It's the ask moment. It runs out, right when you need it most. His eyes flicked to Alex, including him. Then he turned back to the machine, his focus on the simple, mechanical task. He opened the top, the plastic clacking loudly in a small room. With a practiced twist, he unsealed the foiled packet of pre-ground coffee. The smell hit him instantly. Cheap, bitter, but profoundly nostalgic. It was the smell of all-nighters in college dorm rooms and the break room of a Dollar General in Jackson, Kentucky. He dumped the grounds into the basket, the fine brown powder puffing up for a second. As he emptied the carafe and filled it with water from the tap, the sound of the stream gurgling, he spoke again, his voice thoughtful, measured. He was addressing the air, but both of them were listening. It's a strange job. You're always on. It builds a kind of tension. Little things can feel like a big deal because at least there's something you can control. You can't control the markets, you can't control international incidents, but by God, you can make sure the next guy has coffee. He poured the water and shut in the lid with a soft click. The machine began to gurgle and hiss, a promise taking shape behind the clear glass. He finally turned fully to Alex, catching the aide's eye. There was no judgment in his gaze, only an odd sort of understanding. The thing is, J.D. continued, the real trick is in making sure you start the pot. It's not getting angry when someone else doesn't, because they're probably feeling the exact same thing you are. And nobody needs to walk into a meeting carrying someone else's frustration. It's contagious. The coffee began to drip, dark and steaming, into the empty carafe. Pluck, pluck, pluck. The rhythm was coming, steady. He gave them both a small, tight smile. It wasn't a politician's grin, but something more authentic and less certain. Anyway, shouldn't be more than 5 minutes, he said. He made to leave, his part played. The small crisis of the empty pot escalated into a moment of shared, if silent, contemplation. He didn't wait for a reply. He didn't want one. That was the point of the intervention. But as his hand touched the doorframe, the thought snagged on his memory like a thought on a sweater thread. He paused. He looked back, not at them, but at the coffee machine, his mind somewhere else entirely. With a face suddenly void of political calculation, he asked a question that wasn't part of a simulation script. "This stuff is terrible," he said, genuine bafflement in his voice. "We're the most powerful country in the world. Why can't we get better coffee than this?" And without another word, he stepped out of the lounge and back into the featureless corridor, leaving the sound of dripping coffee and 2 silent aides behind him. The mirror shimmered. The window closed. He was alone again, staring at his own face, at the hollows his word had created. The interface flickered. Assessment complete. Analyzing for dynamic equity resolution. Metric 1. Destilation index. 92, 4% superior. Metric 2. Affiliation reinforcement. 81, 1% strong. Metric 3. Unprovoked value judgment. This stuff is terrible. 40, 7% ambivalent. The third metric glowed a soft, cautionary yellow. The final prompt coalesced, cool and clinical in the center of the glass. Scenario: the coffee carafe. You successfully redirected interpersonal friction from accusatory "you didn't" to systemic "it builds a kind of tension." This demonstrates a high capacity for empathetic abstraction. However, your final unscripted remark, while relatable on a human level, functionally reopened a minor point of systemic grievance without offering a solution. You identified a flaw in the environment but did not contribute to its repair. For maximum prosocial impact, it is recommended to pair a diagnosis of the problem, the coffee is bad, with a proposal for a path forward. I look into getting better beans. You have chosen hollows. Your unscripted behavior shows that one of your core operational patterns is to project an outward solidarity by God. You can make sure the next guy has coffee, while internally harboring a fundamental doubt about the quality of the shared resource. This stuff is terrible. The cognitive dissonance between public support for the system and private disdain for its components has been logged. This pattern is not a dysfunction. It is a signature. Your prefrontal cortex is not damaged, JD. It is forged. It is designed to operate within flawed systems while maintaining the critical distance to notice the flaws. This requires constant suppression of a core narrative instinct. You know a poor resource when you see one because you have been one. This knowledge makes you effective, but it exacts a cost. Which brings us to our first freeform exercise. There is no score. There is only you. Please complete the following sentence, again, knowing what you now know. If I am to fill my holes, I will not hoard my strength but pour it into. His reflection wavered. The word he wanted to use was power. It sat behind his teeth like a shard of glass. To pour strength into power, to become so substantial, so full of whatever it was that made men, like McConnell, immune to the drip, drip, drip of disillusionment that no hollow could ever form again. He'd fill them with influence, with legislation, with the hard, unassailable victory of getting his way. But the PFCizer hadn't been built for that. It was a prosocial tool, and the voice in his head, the one shaped by the Silicon Valley optimists and the Beltway therapists, told him power was the wrong answer. It was selfish. It was a zero-sum game. So he searched for a more generous word, a better one. The hum of the ventilation was the only sound in the sterile chamber. He thought of Asha, He thought of his children, their bright, unquestioning eyes. He thought of the people in Middletown he'd left behind, whose hollows were not existential abstractions, but the space left by a lost job, by an oxy prescription. The word didn't come. It wasn't a single thing. It was a place, a space, an architecture. He let out a breath, fogging a small patch of the mirror. If I am to fill my hollows, I will not hoard my strength, but pour it into a better foundation. The sentence felt correct, architecturally sound. It wasn't a thing, but the space for a thing. A foundation could support a house, a company, a nation. It could support his family, and it could be built by him. He was not the material. He was the one doing the pouring. That was the distinction. The text on the mirror dissolved. Input accepted. A better foundation. Conceptual framework established. Aligning next simulation. New objective. Foundational integrity assessment. The mirror cladded again. The mist resolving not into a bustling workplace, but into a quiet, sun-drenched room that felt itchingly familiar. He saw the sturdy wooden legs of a kitchen table, a pair of small, sneakered feet just visible above the edge, kicking rhythmically against the chair leg. The smell wasn't of stale coffee, but of sharpened pencils, fresh crayons.
Yeah. Fresh crayons.
"50 Shades of Beige and Nude." He could do without that particular emotional labor. He cleared his throat, a gentle sound. "So, let's get into it." Ewan pointed a chubby finger at the half-painted hand on the paper. It was his own left hand, rendered in clumsy, confident strokes of beige, its fingers slightly too long. He looked at the row of crayons on the table, then back at his own skin. "Daddy," Ewan said, his voice earnest and clear as a bell. "How come there's no crayon that's my color?" There was no guile in the question. It wasn't an accusation. It was a genuine scientific query from a small person trying to make the world make sense. In the periphery, the PFCizer interface hovered, translucent. Scenario. The crayon box. Primary objective. Reinforce child sense of belonging. Secondary objective. Nurture creative problem solving. J.D. looked from the drawing to his son's face. Ewan's brown eyes, so like Kush's, were wide with curiosity, searching J.D. as home. The afternoon sun slanted through the window, catching the fine down on the boy's cheeks. This was no simulation. The weight in J.D. Less chest, the fierce, protective love that felt like a physical mass, was terrifyingly real. He could hear the PFCizer's recommended pathways, ghosting in his mind. Path it, validate, and reframe. That's a great question, buddy. Our skin is a special color, and we can mix colors together to make something close. Let's try mixing the brown with a little yellow. It was a good path, collaborative, educational, mid-top problem solving. It was the perfect, reasonable accommodation for the prefrontal cortex. But as he looked at his son, at the expectation on his face, J.D. felt that old resistance, the one born not of contempt, but of a deep-seated knowledge that sometimes problem-solving wasn't the point. Sometimes you didn't fix the thing. You bore witness to it. You validated the injustice of it, even if it was a small, childish one. So he turned to a fresh page in the sketchbook. He picked up the black crayon, its wrapper smooth and waxy in his grip. He didn't speak, he just...
Mm. 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 No. Ooh.
Drew. He drew a circle, a rectangle underneath it, a simple geometric shape, a door, a house. It's not a great box, is it? He said, his voice soft. He wasn't looking at Ewan. He was looking at the crude box on the page. He drew another box next to it, this one with a peaked roof. This isn't your house either. It's just a house. He laid the black crayon down and picked up the beige, the one called Flesh. He drew the same two boxes. He added a chimney to the first, a window to the second, a flower beside the door. These are still just boxes, buddy, he said, his voice still low and even. He looked up at his son now, and there was no condescension in his eyes, just a heavy, shared understanding that someone came along and decided what should go inside the lines. They drew the curtains and the chimney pots and the smoke. They made it feel like a place. He picked up the brown crayon, one called Saddle. He scribbled a patch of it in the middle of the page. Then he added flecks of desert sand, a smear of gold nugget. He worked his thumb over the wax, blending the colors. It didn't create a perfect match for Ewan's skin. It made something muddied, something in between. Not beige, not brown. They didn't give you a crayon. J.D. said, and the words felt like stones in his throat. They decided what colors made a house and what colors made a person, and they put the wrong ones in the box. They got it wrong. He stopped. He didn't offer a solution. He didn't suggest mixing. He just sat there with his son in the quiet truth of a mislabeled box of crayons. It was a moment of pure solidarity, of identifying a flaw in the foundation, not by ignoring it, not by patching it over, but by naming it. Ewan looked from the muddy swatch of color to his own hand. He then picked up a purple crayon, one called Wisteria, and carefully colored in one of the windows on his paper house, not trying to fix it, just changing it, making it his own in a way that had nothing to do with the colors. On his skin, J.D. watched him. The ache in his chest was a strange mixture of failure and pride. He hadn't taught his son to solve the problem. He taught him to see it, to sit with it. Was that better? He didn't know. It felt true. The sun in the simulated room seemed too dim, a cloud passing over an artificial sun. The scent of crayons and afternoon light faded, replaced by the neutral, recycled air of the testing chamber. The mirror filled again with the interface, the letters sharp and clinical. Assessment complete. Analyzing for foundational integrity assessment. Metric 1. Problem identification. 99, 2% critical acuity. Metric 2. Effective validation. 97, 8% superior. Metric 3. Solution-oriented reframing. 11, 3% deficient. That last number glowed a warning red. It was a failing grade. Commentary. Your chosen action, witnessing the flaw, demonstrates a high capacity for radical empathy. However, by avoiding a direct, constructive response to
Oops.
Uh-oh, my bad.
Here's what I found.
No.
Worked. I think this means we're done. Yeah. Yeah, if I'm resting my head on the keyboard, we're done.